Hello, everyone. Welcome to India Sports News for yet another episode looking back at the previous World Cups. And today, in the episode of Beyond the Boundaries, where we are going to talk about two World Cups. Am I right, Devendra, my friend? Devendra
Yes,
Prabhudesai? Two World Cups.
memorable ones for India.
Memorable. One, not so much. One, very memorable. And the two World Cups that we are talking about are the 2003 World Cup, where India made it to the final and lost to the eventual champion, Australia, and 2011, when India beat all odds to reach the final and then win the World Cup, beating Sri Lanka at Wankhede Stadium right here in Mumbai, where we are filming this podcast episode. Devendra, welcome. 2003 World Cup. What are your memories?
2003 World Cup, what I remember is it was a culmination of some meticulous planning. I think the planning for that tournament started in 2002, nearly 12 months in advance. And that is how you are expected to prepare. Any professional outfit is expected to prepare for a World Cup. I remember exactly a year before that World Cup, in early 2002, there was a panel discussion in Mumbai, in South Mumbai, cricket panel discussion. And the topic of that discussion was what should India do to win the World Cup? And we were at that stage in a shambles. The one-day team was consistently losing from winning positions. That famous India-England one-day series, which we should have won, but instead it ended up as a 3-all draw with Flintoff taking his shirt off at the Wankhede. That had just happened. And we were in a shambles on the limited overs front. And that panel discussion, I remember, it featured people like Sanjay Manjrekar, Ian Chappell, and even Ian Chappell was uncharacteristically very diplomatic, and he was making all the right noises. We need to do this. India needs to do this, that. Sanjay Manjrekar, I remember, talked about picking a specialist leg spinner and giving that leg spinner. We all know that he wasn't really a fan of Anil Kumble's at that stage. Another panelist, the famous ad guru Piyush Pandey, he was very forthright. And I remembered him distinctly saying that India does not have a chance in hell of winning the 2003 World Cup. And I remember there was pin drop silence for a few seconds when he said that, but not many people were inclined to take him on or disagree with him because he was talking the truth. The team was in a shambles, but then that management comprising John Wright, the coach, Saurav Ganguly, the captain, Rahul Dravid, the vice captain, and Sachin Tendulkar, the senior player. I think they all came together and that planning process began, and the grand culmination of all those plans and strategies was the World Cup, the qualification for the final.
Good that you make the point about the one-day team of India being in complete shambles, because मुझे अच्छी तरह से याद है West Indies गया था भारत and they lost the test series which they should have drawn if the batsmen had held up for half an hour. It rained for 15 days. The test series would have been drawn. Right after the test series, there was a one-day series. The first two matches in Jamaica, which was rained off. The last three games, India won that series, one-day series. An interesting thing that happened in that one-day series was the fact that Saurav Ganguly got Rahul Dravid to keep wickets. Now, we know that 2 years prior to that, Saurav Ganguly, Rahul Dravid, John Wright have been searching for a wicketkeeper who could bat.
Yes.
So they even got Vikram Rathore, who's the current India batting coach, to start keeping wickets because Saurav realized that Vikram had kept wickets back in this under 19 days or even before that. So he got him to start wicket keeping, and ultimately that failed. They even tried to go at some other options, look for some other options, because remember, this is pre-Mahendra Singh Dhoni. And that's why this becomes very interesting. How did you look at that whole move to get Rahul to keep wickets?
Yeah, so the idea was to get a wicketkeeper who could bat, and there were a lot of experiments done post Nayan Mongia, like Deep Das Gupta, Ajay Ratra, and somehow or the other that they didn't work. And the team wanted balance, and I think they came to a conclusion that okay, if you cannot find a wicket-keeping all-rounder, then let's create one. So they went up to Rahul, the vice captain, and told him that, look, you have kept in your younger days, and he had kept wicket for India in emergency situations on a couple of occasions. Even in '99 World Cup, in Nayan Mongia's absence, he had kept in a couple of games. So now that again underscores the great team man that is Rahul Dravid. He was the vice captain. He could have very easily said, no, it's very tough on the lower back. I want to focus on my batting, etc. But for the team, he did that. And I think that led to a situation where we had as many as 7 specialist batsmen, followed by 4 bowlers. And I still remember Nasir Hussain, the England captain, after that famous final at Lord's, which was won by the 7th batsman, Mohammad Kaif, in fact. And, we chased down 326 and Saurav Ganguly gave a fitting reply to Flintoff by taking his shirt off. I remember Nasir Hussain saying at the presentation ceremony that this Indian batting lineup is like scary. The batsmen just keep coming one after the other. And that just vindicated that 7 batsman strategy of the Indian team.
Absolutely. And interesting that you mentioned that 7 batsman strategy, because Mohammad Kaif and Yuvraj Singh owe a lot in that sense to Rahul Dravid, because he was prepared to sacrifice his body in a way for the sake of Indian cricket. Not much has changed for a Rahul in Indian cricket, because another Rahul could end up keeping wickets at this year's World Cup. So there's something about keeping an Rahul in Indian cricket and getting close to the World Cups, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think when it comes to consistency, the older Rahul wins hands down.
Absolutely.
Let's not even get into the younger Rahul for now.
Anyways, now talking about the build-up to this 2003 World Cup, Australia was this machine, juggernaut, which was on its own journey since 1999 in one-day cricket and in Test cricket. You had England, which was still not taking one-day cricket that seriously. New Zealand was doing well at home on softer pitches. India was in New Zealand, and we know what happened right before that World Cup. India was completely thrashed in the one-dayers, though the pitches, you couldn't differentiate between the pitches and the outfield.
Correct.
Pakistan was in the aftershock of match fixing, had a new captain. What's new? And Sri Lanka was doing well under Sanath Jayasuriya and Dav Watmore. South Africa were doing well, were rebuilding after the match fixing saga under Sean Pollock. How did you look at the other contenders, leaving India aside, leading into this World Cup?
Well, we all expected Australia to be a formidable opponent, and everybody even thought that South Africa would be very hard to beat on their own pitches. So I always believed that South Africa would definitely make it to the semi-finals at least. Australia would be there, and New Zealand always had this knack of raising their game when it mattered. On the bigger the stage, brought out the best in them. And India, of course, for sentimental reasons. Although, as you mentioned, that New Zealand tour, which happened just a couple of months before the World Cup, we had lost the one-day series 2-5. But there always was this feeling that we have a good one-day side, and we knew that the World Cup was likely to be played on wickets that had a lot in them for the batsmen. So we felt that we had a chance of making it big. But Australia was always the clear-cut favorite.
Absolutely. And we spoke about the other contenders. Now, the Indian team per se, now the one-day team, there was a bit of a drama in mid-2002 when Javagal Srinath decided that he's going to retire. And everybody thought 5-6 months before the World Cup, he said he's retiring from Test cricket, but they didn't choose him for one-day cricket, saying, how can you retire from one format and choose one over the other? Little did they know that 2 decades later, people are doing it as a common practice all over the world. When you look at the makeup of that side, there was one controversy. And Indian cricket World Cup selection, always there's something or the other drama that happens. There was one controversy, and that was the non-selection of VVS Lakshman, who incidentally could end up someday writing a book with Yuzvendra Chahal about not making it to a World Cup. What did you make of that whole squad selection?
I think it was one of the things that Indian selectors got wrong. Indian selectors have in recent times displayed a propensity to go wrong with when it comes to World Cup selections. They did it 4 years ago by not sending anyone who was good enough for the number 4 position after grooming people for a year and a half prior to the World Cup. I hope it doesn't happen in 2023, but it looks as if they haven't learnt from 2019, going by the composition of the 2023 team. And I think that was a big mistake that was made in 2003. Having VVS Lakshman in the team, batting at one down, I think would have made a massive difference. He would have just run away with the game. I feel with that habit of his of finding the gaps, he would have been an asset in the top order, playing absolutely perfect conventional cricketing shots, but getting them at more than a runner ball.
And strangely, the same reasons were given in 2003 to what was given just a few days ago when the 2023 or the makeup of the 2023 squad was announced about Dinesh Mongia being a handy bowler and a batter. And they already had a lot of options in Saurav, Sachin, Sehwag, Yuvraj.
That
Uh,
itself made it quite ridiculous because when you have multiple options among the batsmen, bowling options like Sachin, Sehwag, Yuvraj, Saurav Ganguly himself, then why would you need Dinesh Mongia also to chip in? I think, and Virender Sehwag as well.
and Bangar.
And Bangar. So why would you need Dinesh Mongia to turn his arm over? I think that was a blunder, big blunder. Leaving Lakshman out was a massive blunder.
And as we would find out later, it was a massive blunder. Everybody kept pointing fingers at each other, saying he suggested that, and we never got to the end of it. But the makeup of the bowling attack, would you say that was the best bowling attack India has ever assembled at a World Cup?
I would say yes. In terms of we had three quality pacemen, and it was a combination of experience and youth. You had Srinath, then you had Zahir, who was in between, and then you had Ashish Nehra, and then Anil Kumble and Harbhajan were sharing the lone specialist spinners duties, and then you had batsmen chipping in as bowling all rounders for the fifth bowlers option. So I think it was a very balanced bowling attack. The team itself was balanced because of the vice captain Rahul Dravid. So yeah, I would say that till that stage it was India's best bowling attack in a World Cup.
You spoke about the balance in the side, and we had a good mix of youth and experience in that sense. There were a lot of guys who had been playing together as a group for a while, and it was the only probable miss could have been was VVS Lakshman in that sense. Now, getting into the World Cup after the disaster in New Zealand, and India had been struggling to win a title because remember between 99 and 2003 we had a lot of triangular tournaments, and India kept losing in the finals. And then we also had the match fixing saga. Key players for India in one day cricket had to be replaced. And Champions Trophy 2002, which happened just months before the World Cup, India was joint winner with Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, and India's main squad almost did not play in that tournament because of the contract saga. Now, getting into the World Cup, uh, India played a few practice games before the World Cup. Uh, it wasn't really the best of starts for India. They struggled in the first game against Netherlands. But did you expect what would happen next against Australia, where they were blown away by Australia, and there was complete outrage? There was no social media then. There was outrage on the street with effigies being burned.
Yeah, I think the people of the cricket-loving community in the country was a little bit restless and restive after the New Zealand tour debacle that happened 2 months in advance, and they expected a good showing from the team in the World Cup, obviously. But the manner in which the India won the first match against Netherlands was not very convincing. And then, of course, Australia. Nobody expected the Australians to bowl India out for just 125 and then win by 9 wickets. So I think that led to an uproar, and of course, most of it was completely over the top. How the people behaved. One has to here say that some eminent former cricketers also need to take the blame for the over the top reactions with their absolutely outlandish declarations on television channels, because you could not help but laugh when people who had not won any titles or had whose own record was nothing compared to the members of the Indian team of 2003. They were just going hammer and tongs and saying things like, this player should be the 14th man of the team. He should not even be in the playing 11. I mean, constructive criticism is always welcome. I'm sure even the players appreciate constructive criticism if it is made by someone who has played the game at the highest level. But this was totally outrageous. And I think a couple of the houses of the players were stoned and there were demonstrations. Totally uncalled for. And I think it then needed the most experienced member of the team to put his hand up. Sachin Tendulkar did something extraordinary on the eve of our third match against Zimbabwe at Harare, where he walked into the press conference area and with a sheet of paper in his hand, and he just read out 2 or 3 lines that I understand that my compatriots are disappointed with our performance so far, but we are here to assure you that we will fight till the last ball is bowled. And making that statement, he just walked out of the press conference room. And that sort of, I think, settled everybody because Sachin had put his hand up in a crisis. And from then on, I think everybody just got his act together.
And you mentioned that it happened in Harare. India's campaign just got us a second wind from that game in Harare, where they beat Zimbabwe, they thrashed Sri Lanka. The Pakistan game, March 1st, 2003. I'll never forget that because we'd been building up to that match for about 3 years because India had last played Pakistan in the 2000 Asia Cup. And a lot had changed between that Asia Cup in Pakistan cricket, in world cricket, and of course in Indian cricket. That particular match, the build-up, because I think that was the first time I saw the HNIs, the high net worth individuals from India, traveling to a world cricket event and waving the flag in the stands, and a lot of Indians, expat Indians or Indians from India, traveling to a cricket event. What are your memories of that particular match?
In the India-Pakistan game, hugely awaited. We were high on confidence by then because we had got into a bit of a role. We beat Zimbabwe in Zimbabwe, which was always a great achievement in those days when Zimbabwe had a fantastic team. Then I think we beat Namibia, we beat England very convincingly with Ashish Nehra taking 6 wickets. So we had more or less booked our passage into the Super Sixes. But again, Pakistan, for my generation, obviously memories of 1986 Australia Asia Cup final. Javed Miadat still, they tended to pop up whenever we played Pakistan. But there was this confidence that if we bat first, we have the batting capabilities to put up a big score. And if we bowl first, then if we restrict them to around 240, 250, we will have a fairly good chance. As it turned out, Pakistan batted first and scored 273. And I remember just thinking to myself, oh my God, here we go again. Because one of India's oldest friends, and I'm using this very sarcastically, Saeed Anwar, who had enjoyed himself in the late 90s at the expense of the Indian bowling. He scored a century and batted as only he could with those absolutely gorgeous placements using his wrist to perfection. A great player, Saeed Anwar. And I remember thinking to myself, oh God, here we go again. And 273 was tough. It was a good score in 2003. And if memory serves me right, at that stage, India's highest successful chase in a World Cup match was something like 222 or something. So history wasn't in our favor, and we just felt that something extraordinary needed to happen. And then, of course, what happened is history. I mean, absolutely, whatever happened next was out of this world.
Absolutely. It's a story of, must say, 2 6s India-Pakistan cricket, one-day cricket. First was in 1986, which Javed Miadat struck and left a scar on a generation, the present company included. And then 2003 happened when the slash, the uppercut kind of a shot, a over point from Sachin Tendulkar, which I think tilted the balance towards India over the next couple of decades. Pakistanis could well argue that it's now shifted again towards them after the performance in the T20 World Cup in Dubai. But that particular shot will be talked about for time immemorial.
Time immemorial. In fact, those 3 shots, 6 followed by a boundary and another boundary, and the way Sachin Tendulkar batted.
The one on the square leg.
The mid-wicket, and then that
mid-wicket,
the it was so well timed that the ball still went for 4, and then Shoaib Akhtar refused to bowl after that 1 over, and Waqar had to bring himself on. And Waqar's first ball, if I remember correctly, was hit by Sehwag for 6. It was a rollicking start, and I remember just gaping. I mean, with my mouth wide open, what exactly is happening? Sachin Tendulkar, I think, we belong to that generation that vividly recalls the entire duration of Sachin's career. I mean, from 1989 to 2013, we were the generation that saw the entirety of his career, and we vividly recall his entire 24-year career. I have been privileged to have watched most of his great innings either live, most of them on television, some in the ground itself. I would say that when it comes to limited overs cricket, if I have to pick one inning, I will pick his 98 against Pakistan that day, even ahead of the sandstorm knocks at Sharjah. For the sheer significance, the enormity of the situation, you're playing Pakistan, you're chasing this huge target, and everybody's looking forward to Sachin to do something special. And boy, did he do something special.
Absolutely. And it's not often that Indian cricket followers will say that somebody who's not scored 100 is a special lock. I think Sachin's 98 will rank amongst his best. I think उसके जैसा वनडे में मैंने नॉक बिल्कुल नहीं देखा है। अब इस टूर्नामेंट में साइड में और भी चीजें हो रही थी। एक चीज जो आपको और मुझे भली बात याद होगी, इंजमाम ने इस टूर्नामेंट से ठीक पहले बहुत वेट लूज किया था और वो एकदम दुबले पतले हो गए थे और फिर भी रन आउट हो रहे थे और इंडिया वाले मैच में भी रन आउट हुए थे। और एक चीज, ट्रेनिंग सेशन में वो फुटबॉल खेल रहे थे पाकिस्तानी टीम, यूनिस खान और इंजमाम के बीच में हाथापाई हो गई थी, आपको याद है?
पाकिस्तान, दैट इज व्हाट पाकिस्तान इज, क्योंकि ये तो पहले से चल रहा है। इमरान खान के भी टाइम पे सुनील गावस्कर और उस जमाने के कई क्रिकेटर्स जो दूसरे टीमों के लिए खेलते थे, दे हैव गॉन ऑन रिकॉर्ड टू से कि हम जब पाकिस्तान के अगेंस्ट खेलते थे तो पाकिस्तानी टीम हमें गालियां नहीं देती थी, वो एक दूसरे को गाली देते थे। सो दैट इज पाकिस्तान ट्रेडिशन। द ओनली थिंग इज देयर कॉमन ऑब्जेक्टिव इज टू विन मैचेस फॉर देयर टीम, बट वो इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू फाइंड पाकिस्तानीज हु आर ऑन गुड टर्म्स विद ईच अदर।
और उसके अलावा एक ऐसा दौर चल रहा था ऑस्ट्रेलियाई टीम का कि उनको रोकना मुश्किल ही नहीं, नामुमकिन साबित हो रहा था। It started in the 99 World Cup and it continued in this particular World Cup in 2003. Started with Andrew Simons in that first game against Pakistan. They were in trouble and after that you couldn't stop them and they found new heroes.
Exactly.
Andy Bickle हो गया, Andrew Simons हो गया, माइकल बेवन ने एक मैच में आखिर में आके रन बनाया, मैच जिताया। सो दे वर एबल टू फाइंड न्यू हीरोज इन एवरी गेम एंड समथिंग बिग हैपेंड व्हिच आई शुड नॉट फॉरगेट। शेन वॉर्न, बिफोर अ बॉल वाज बोल्ड, was ruled out of the tournament because of testing positive for a drug abuse.
Yes, yes. तो इमेजिन कीजिए कि टूर्नामेंट के शुरू में ही आपका जो टॉप प्लेयर है शेन वॉर्न, द मैन ऑफ द मैच इन द सेमीफाइनल एंड फाइनल ऑफ द प्रीवियस वर्ल्ड कप एंड एन आइकॉन ऑफ द स्पोर्ट, ही हैज बीन बैन्ड फॉर 1 year. He's been suspended from the World Cup. बैन तो बाद में अनाउंस हुआ और वो चले गए हैं और आपकी पहली मैच है अगेंस्ट पाकिस्तान टीम दैट इंक्लूड्स वसीम अकरम, वकार यूनुस, शोएब अख्तर, great bowling attack. And what happens? Andrew Simons करके एक प्लेयर आ जाता है and he scores 145 and the shots he plays, the manner in which he bats, he just took the game away from Pakistan. वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया की खासियत थी, जो कहते हैं पुरानी क्रिकेट की कहावत है that the strength of a team can be measured in terms of its bench strength. उनके जो रिप्लेसमेंट प्लेयर्स कितने काबिल होते हैं उससे पता चलता है कि टीम कितनी स्ट्रांग है. So they found new heroes, as you said, Andrew Simons in that match. आगे जाके इंग्लैंड के खिलाफ उन्हें कुछ 65 रन्स करने थे एंड दे हैड ओनली 2 विकेट्स इन हैंड एंड एंडी बिकल, जो कि प्लेइंग 11 में भी नहीं थे, कोई इंजर्ड हुआ था इसलिए वो मैच खेल रहे थे. एंडी, ही वाज अ लोअर ऑर्डर बैट्समैन. उन्होंने वो मैच जिताई इन आई थिंक इन द कंपनी ऑफ माइकल बेवन. सो दे वर केप्ट हैविंग दीज फाइंडिंग दीज न्यू हीरोज. बेसिकली होता यह है कि क्रिकेट अल्टीमेटली कहते हैं कि ये 22 यार्ड्स, हम सब जानते हैं 22 यार्ड्स होते हैं. There is a certain weight of the width of the bat. The ball measures 5.5 ounces and all that. But actually, cricket is played between the ears. It is played in this area, which is between the ears. Or Australia, I think they knew how to win, and that makes a huge difference. वो जानते थे, they were used to winning matches, so they would find ways of winning.
Absolutely. And उसके अलावा कुछ और चीजें भी हो रही थी इस वर्ल्ड कप में, क्योंकि ये साउथ अफ्रीका में, अफ्रीकन कॉन्टिनेंट में हो रहा था, जिम्बाब्वे में, साउथ अफ्रीका में, और कुछ मैचेस कीनिया में भी होने थे. और इस टूर्नामेंट में जैसे 96 में हुआ था, 99 में किसी को पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट नहीं देना था, 2003 में सबकी अंतरात्मा की आवाज जागी और कुछ लोगों ने कहा कि हम जिम्बाब्वे नहीं जाएंगे, कुछ ने कहा हम कीनिया नहीं जाएंगे. और इसका ये फायदा हुआ कि कीनिया आगे बढ़ती गई और उन्होंने बीच में एक दो टीमों को हराया भी। और इन पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट्स और कीनिया का सेमीफाइनल में पहुंचना कितनी बड़ी बात थी।
बहुत बड़ी बात थी. सो आई थिंक कीनिया, आई थिंक दे मेड इट, दे टुक अ वेरी सिंपल स्टैंड कि हम कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते जो बाकी के टीम्स कर रहे हैं. अगर न्यूजीलैंड बोल रही है कि हमें कीनिया नहीं आना है, वी कांट रियली हेल्प इट. वो मैच फॉरफिट हुई, कीनिया को 2 पॉइंट्स मिले और फिर आगे जाके कीनिया ने श्रीलंका को हराया. सो व्हेनेवर रिक्वायर्ड, कीनिया रेज्ड देयर गेम and I think they fully deserved a place in the semi-finals. Full credit to the way that the players fought, and Sandeep Patil, who coached them. I mean, there was an Indian connection as far as Kenya was concerned. Australia के against भी जो Super 6 मैच हुई, they did well. They took a couple of wickets. थोड़ा उन्होंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया को भी प्रॉब्लम में डाल दिया था. Although of course Australia recovered and went on to win. They also gave us a tough time in the Super 6 match. I remember when Saurav Ganguly and Yuvraj Singh came together in the middle. हमारे 2-3 विकेटें जा चुकी थी. सो देयर वाज सम जिटर्स, लेकिन ऑफ कोर्स फिर गांगुली और युवराज ने वो मैच जीता इंडिया के लिए. सो कीनिया वर अ गुड साइड एंड आई थिंक दे मेड द मोस्ट ऑफ द सिचुएशन.
एब्सोल्युटली. एंड उसके अलावा भी कुछ और पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट्स हो रहे थे, पर वो हो रहे थे जिम्बाब्वे के कैंप से, जहां पे एंडी फ्लावर और हेनरी ओलंगा ने रॉबर्ट मुगाबे, जो उस वक्त प्रेसिडेंट थे जिम्बाब्वे के, उनके खिलाफ आवाज उठाई थी. उस पॉलिटिकल स्टैंड का जिम्बाब्वे क्रिकेट को आज तक खामियाजा भुगतना पड़ रहा है.
Zimbabwe was a great team in the 1990s. They had some very good players. लेकिन because of the political situation, काफी players ने retire भी कर लिया था prematurely. And I think it was very brave of Andy Flower and Henry Olonga to take that stand. और I think Andy Flintoff और Henry Olonga दोनों, they had to leave the country. I don't think they have gone back as.
अभी गए थे, अभी एंडी फ्लावर गया था अभी वर्ल्ड कप क्वालिफायर में कमेंट्री करने गए थे, तो वो वापस जा चुके, क्योंकि वहां पर रेजिम चेंज हो गया है. रॉबर्ट मुगाबे जा चुके हैं, तो वो सब वहां पे अब सेटल हो चुका है. और क्रिकेट भी उनकी पहले से बेहतर हो गई है, खासकर व्हाइट बॉल क्रिकेट. टेस्ट क्रिकेट उतना खेलते नहीं है, बट आई थिंक वो वापस अपने पैरों पर खड़े होने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. पर ये तो हो गई बाकी जो बातें हो रही थी. उसके अलावा जो है, भारतीय टीम अपने चित परिचित अंदाज में चल रहे थे. आखिरी बार भारत ने आईसीसी के इवेंट में, मेंस इवेंट में, न्यूजीलैंड को इसी टूर्नामेंट में हराया था. तो 20 साल हो गए, पता नहीं 20 साल के बाद भारत न्यूजीलैंड को हरा पाएगा या नहीं हरा पाएगा, वो देखने वाली बात होगी 2023 के वर्ल्ड कप में. इंटरेस्टिंग बात यह है कि एक मैच में ऐसा लग रहा था एक बॉल ऑफ हो रहा है, मतलब एज इन लाइक न्यूजीलैंड और ऑस्ट्रेलिया वाले मैच में शेन बॉन्ड एक तरफ, दूसरी तरफ ब्रेट ली, जबरदस्त गेंदबाजी उस टूर्नामेंट में. कमिंग आफ्टर द 96 वर्ल्ड कप, जहां पे बहुत ज्यादा रन बने, 99 वर्ल्ड कप जहां पे उतने ज्यादा रन नहीं बने, इस पर्टिकुलर टूर्नामेंट में गेंदबाजी काफी अच्छी थी ओवरऑल.
करेक्ट. हमारी भी अच्छी थी. आई थिंक द सुपर 6 मैच अगेंस्ट श्रीलंका, आई थिंक श्रीनाथ, Nehra and Zahir, they bowled very well. I think it was a very competitive World Cup where you could not say that the batsmen are dominating the bowlers and vice versa. So I think it was a classic cricket World Cup. Cricket basically क्या है? It is a battle between the bat and ball. और जब imbalance बढ़ जाता है, bat थोड़ी सी ball से ज्यादा powerful होती है, तो शुरू में अच्छा लगता है, but in the long run things can get a little monotonous, boring. But 2003 World Cup, I think they managed to retain that balance.
और एक नाम है जॉन डेविसन, कनाडा के, जो कनाडा क्वालिफाई कर चुका था 79 के बाद पहली बार 2003 में कनाडा क्वालिफाई कर गया था. एक ऑस्ट्रेलियाई मूल का खिलाड़ी जॉन डेविसन, उन्होंने जबरदस्त तेज सेंचुरी मारा वेस्ट इंडीज के सामने और सबको हैरान कर दिया अपनी बल्लेबाजी के साथ.
Absolutely. So again, Canada created a sensation. उन्होंने बांग्लादेश को हराया अपने लीग मैच में. So it was just a great tribute to the game of cricket and the globalization of cricket, which again started in 1983 with India's victory in the 83 World Cup. So people should never forget कि किसकी वजह से क्रिकेट का ग्लोबलाइजेशन शुरू हुआ. So yeah, Davison he played a great innings and there was this balance maintained between bat and ball throughout.
पर उससे भी बड़ी बात ये हुई कि साउथ अफ्रीका का वर्ल्ड कप सभी को लग रहा था, यू ऑल्सो थॉट दैट साउथ अफ्रीका विल मेक इट टू द सेमीफाइनल, एंड दे फॉरगॉट द रूल. They forgot how the rule of Duckworth Lewis. It is not Duckworth Lewis' turn as it is now. Then it was just Duckworth Lewis. There was no Richie Benaud rule like in 1992. Simple Duckworth Lewis. सभी टीमों को they are given a sheet of where you need to be. आई थिंक गलती ये करते हैं, उसमें ये लिखते हैं पार स्कोर। मुझे लगता है कि वहां पे विनिंग स्कोर लिखना ज्यादा
I think yeah, but again South Africa थोड़ा सा मेरे ख्याल से they fell into their own trap, क्योंकि जैसे मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले कहा the Australians knew how to win. साउथ अफ्रीका का प्रॉब्लम उस दौर में ये था that they did not know how to win and they earned this tag of being the chokers. देखिए 1996 में वेस्ट इंडीज ने उन्हें क्वार्टर फाइनल में हरा दिया, ऑल्दो साउथ अफ्रीका हैड वन ऑल देयर लीग मैचेस. उसके बाद 99 सेमीफाइनल में हम जानते हैं क्या हुआ, ब्रेन फेड कहते थे उसको, लांस क्लूसनर और एलन डोनाल्ड के बीच. और 2003 में उनकी श्रीलंका के साथ मैच थी, देयर वाज अ रेन इंटरप्शन और वो शीट उन्होंने रेफर की. जो स्कोर उन्होंने सोचा कि करना चाहिए वो उन्होंने कर दिया, बट एंड देयर वाज वन बॉल लेफ्ट एंड दे डिड नॉट डू एनीथिंग, दे प्लेड इट डिफेंसिवली.
और मार्क बाउचर ने सेलिब्रेट किया था,
और मार्क बाउचर ने सेलिब्रेट भी किया कि ओके हमने पार स्कोर अचीव कर लिया है तो वी आर थ्रू. बट एक्चुअली वो शीट पे जो स्कोर था दैट वाज द स्कोर दे नीडेड टू गेट टू लेवल द टू इक्वलाइज द मैच. सो एंडेड उसके बाद बारिश शुरू हुई and the match was declared a tie and the teams had to share points instead of South Africa getting full points. So yeah, that was a mistake, but I think वो थोड़ा again it's a mental thing. They really need and in fact even we saw that even in 2015 the semi-final. तो वो थोड़ा सा है एक South African
2011 also
2011 as well.
So they seem to find new ways to exit the tournament.
Yes.
Only in 2019 they went out the legitimate way, losing almost everything. Now we are into the semi-final. Sri Lanka and Australia played this one semi-final. India played Kenya in the other semi-final. So it was supposed to be like an easy passage for India, and it did end up being a easy passage for India. And Sri Lanka, Australia, again there was a bit of drama where Adam Gilchrist decided that he would walk.
That came as a total surprise because Australians generally don't walk. but ठीक है, अभी उनको लगा कि मुझे जाना चाहिए तो गए. बाद में कुछ सालों बाद वही एडम गिलक्रिस्ट थे जो सिडनी टेस्ट में इंडिया के खिलाफ he just went up in appeal although the ball had clearly hit Rahul Dravid's pads and Gilchrist appealed for caught behind. So it works both ways I think. But what he did, good for him. But मैंने कहीं पे सुना है कि his teammates were not very happy because Australians का हमेशा ये रवैया रहा है कि तुम्हारा काम करो, which is to bat और bowl और field, अंपायर को उनका काम करना है.
बिल्कुल. और फिर फाइनल जो होना था भारत बनाम ऑस्ट्रेलिया, बहुत बड़ा बिल्डअप हुआ. आई थिंक इट वाज द फर्स्ट मेगा वर्ल्ड कप इन द गेज ऑफ द बूम ऑफ सैटेलाइट टेलीविजन. 96-99 से भी ज्यादा सैटेलाइट टेलीविजन, न्यूज नेटवर्क्स इन इंडिया, बहुत बड़ा बिल्डअप हुआ था इस फाइनल के लिए. इतना ज्यादा मतलब प्रेशर हो गया था 83 के बाद, क्या होगा, वर्ल्ड कप जीतेंगे भारत, कप लेके आना, ये वो सब करके बात हुई. और जब मैच शुरू हुआ ऐसा लग रहा था वो सारा बिल्डअप जो है ना वो टीम में भी उसका एक असर था, क्योंकि श्रीनाथ से शुरू हुआ, फिर जहीर खान, और कभी भारत उस बात से कभी उभरा नहीं उस इनिशियल बर्स्ट में जहां पे दोनों जो है श्रीनाथ और जहीर खान उस ओकेशन में दे कुडंट एडजस्ट देमसेल्व्स टू दैट ओकेशन.
आई थिंक वो एक मेरे ख्याल से मिसकैलकुलेशन हुआ और जॉन राइट ने अपनी किताब में लिखा भी है कि शायद श्रीनाथ को पहली ओवर डालनी चाहिए थी. एज इट टर्न आउट जहीर खान बोल्ड द फर्स्ट ओवर और उसी ओवर में ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने कुछ 15 रन स्कोर किए एंड दैट दे गॉट इनटू अ मोमेंटम. श्रीनाथ ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंस थे. That was one mistake. ये भी था कि there was a lot of discussion about the toss. तो सचिन, सौरव और राहुल तीनों को लग रहा था कि हमें फील्डिंग करनी चाहिए आफ्टर विनिंग द टॉस, और कोच का ये मानना था कि हमें बैटिंग करनी चाहिए. बट देयर वर सम वेट स्पॉट्स ऑन द विकेट, इसीलिए उनको लगा कि नहीं, अगर टॉस जीतेंगे तो वी विल फील्ड फर्स्ट, वी आर बी बॉलिंग वेल, तो शायद कुछ 1-2 विकेट्स जल्दी ले सके. अभी ये चीजें तो होती रहती है टीम में, बट I think given the way the Australians had played throughout the tournament, हम दिल से सोच रहे थे कि काश इंडिया जीते, लेकिन दिमाग से पता था that the Indians will need to do something really extraordinary to beat the Australian team. क्योंकि ऑस्ट्रेलिया जिस तरह से खेल रही थी, वो क्रिकेट में जो होता है ना लॉ ऑफ एवरेजेस वगैरह, वो सब उन्होंने had proved everything wrong. They were just on a roll and they were just unstoppable in that tournament. ये हमने एंटिसिपेट नहीं किया था कि वो इतना बड़ा स्कोर करेंगे. मेरे ख्याल से कुछ 359 and that too for only 2 wickets. रिकी पॉन्टिंग ने जिस तरह बैटिंग की,
डेमियन मार्टिन
ने जिस तरह बैटिंग की, इट वाज फैंटाबुलस. या आई थिंक the Australians were just clearly the better team.
एंड दे डिजर्व टू विन द वर्ल्ड
Of
कप फॉर द
course,
सेकंड
obviously.
कंसेक्यूटिव टाइम. वेस्ट इंडीज के बाद वो पहले ऐसे टीम बने जो दो लगातार वर्ल्ड कप जीतने वाली टीम बने. और ये वाली टीम 2003 वाली टीम 99 की टीम से बेहतर थी,
Of course.
काफी बेहतर थी, क्योंकि
बेहतर।
उन्होंने उसके एक साल पहले ही, इस वर्ल्ड कप के ठीक एक साल पहले, उन्होंने अपने वनडे टीम को पूरी तरह से रिकास्ट किया.
Yes.
उन्होंने स्टीव वॉ और मार्क वॉ को टीम से बाहर किया. और वो जैसे 97-98 में उन्होंने वनडे और टेस्ट को अलग किया, उसी तरह उन्होंने 2002 में भी वनडे और टेस्ट को अलग किया. स्टीव वॉ टेस्ट टीम के कप्तान थे, रिकी पॉन्टिंग वनडे टीम के कप्तान थे. T20 अभी भी नहीं था, और ये एक बहुत बड़ी बात थी उस एरा में.
Hey, I think the Australians have always been ahead of the other teams. अगर आप historically भी देखेंगे तो काफी चीजें जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने की वो बाद में बाकी के टीम्स ने अडॉप्ट की. So yeah, they were always they had the resources, और उनका जो एक स्ट्रक्चर है कॉम्पिटिटिव क्रिकेट का, encouraging talent, तो वो बहुत लॉन्ग टर्म प्लानिंग करते थे. There was no room for sentiment. So Steve Waugh, जो 1999 वर्ल्ड कप के विनिंग कैप्टन थे, उनको 99 के 1.5 साल में ही उन्होंने वनडे टीम से बाहर कर दिया था. Because again, they used to always say that we believe in looking ahead. We don't want to look back, and they knew that they had this fantastic bench strength, and it was proved right by looking at the manner in which they won the World Cup.
एब्सोल्युटली. एंड अब जो है भारत, मतलब 2003 वर्ल्ड कप जो हाय तौबा मचा, उसके बाद फाइनल में पहुंचना, टू लूज टू द बेस्ट टीम इन द वर्ल्ड इन वनडे क्रिकेट एट द टाइम, I would say it was a very good tournament for India, barring those 2 days.
Yeah, of course, because India defeated every team in that competition except the team that won the tournament. So I think it was a great victory. I mean, you look at the teams we beat. Zimbabwe at home, always a difficult proposition. Uske baad England, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, New Zealand. So it was, and even Kenya, which was doing so well. So it was a great World Cup for them.
तो अब हम कट टू आगे जाते हैं, मतलब लेट्स गो मूव फॉरवर्ड इन दिस जर्नी ऑफ beyond the boundaries and looking at World Cup heroes. And now we are into the 2011 World Cup, a tournament where both of us worked in different capacities. You were with the BCCI, I was with the ICC. Remember working, building up to the World Cup. Leading into the 2011 World Cup, 2007 was a disaster, and we'll talk about it in detail because there is lots to pack in the 2007 World Cup. Leading into the 2011 World Cup, we started the journey in 2007 when Dhoni became the T20 captain, then the one-day captain. But really, I think with the triangular series in Australia, the journey began for that particular Indian team, didn't it?
Yeah, so in a way, just as the preparations for 2003 started in 2002, I think the preparations for 2011 started in 2008, 3 years in advance. Mahendra Singh Dhoni knew exactly what he wanted. कुछ कंट्रोवर्शियल डिसीजंस किए गए अर्ली 2008 में. कुछ ऐसे प्लेयर्स थे, दिग्गज खिलाड़ी थे, जिनको टीम से, वनडे टीम से बाहर कर दिया गया बिकॉज द कैप्टन महेंद्र सिंह धोनी फेल्ट दैट दे आर लायबिलिटीज इन द फील्ड, रनिंग बिटवीन द विकेट्स में इश्यूज हैं. So he wanted to create this team for the 2011 World Cup. So I think full credit to the BCCI, the selection committee, and Dhoni himself for creating this team. And that core stayed with the team for the next 3 years, from 8 to 11. Gary Kirsten also came on board as the coach of the Indian team in early 2008. So 3 साल से वो preparation चल रही थी, and some of the results were fantastic. हमने वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया में ट्राई सीरीज जीती in early 2008. Mind you, हमारे opponents कौन थे उस ट्राई सीरीज में? ऑस्ट्रेलिया and Sri Lanka, the winners and runners up of the 2007 World Cup. Less than a year after that 2007 World Cup, both the winners and runner-up were defeated by India, which had not even qualified for the second stage of the 2007 World Cup. So एक बड़ी change हुई थी, और काफी सारे जो players जो early 2008 से one-day team में थे, they were playing tournament after tournament, 8, 9, 10. So by the time the 2011 World Cup started, I think they were just ready to fire.
Absolutely. And मुझे याद है 2008 से लेकर 2011 के बीच में there used to be a lot of these triangular tournaments. There used to be a lot of bilateral series where key players used to rest from time to time. Because I remember that, someone like a Tendulkar, Sehwag, they used to rest from time to time between 2008 and 11. And a lot of other key players also, they didn't always play. Like it happens in 23, they didn't always play these tournaments. And what that did was give opportunities to a couple of young players. I think you must remember the name. What's that name? I keep forgetting. Virat Kohli
Virat Kohli, yes.
and Rohit Sharma. Couple of these young players came into the fray in that particular phase because these senior players used to rest. Much like what's happening in 23, because there is a possibility that someone like a Tilak Verma might sneak in the
Yeah,
World Cup squad. So something similar was happening then, but the gestation period was longer, so they had more games to get under their belt before the World Cup.
Yes. So again, that is the outcome of planning. So in early 2008 itself, India won the Under 19 World Cup under the captaincy of Virat. So it was a big shot in the arm as far as the junior cricket was concerned. Rohit Sharma had been in the wings. He had already been a part of the 2007 T20 World Cup winning side. These two players came into the picture. Suresh Raina had made his debut in 2005. He was there. So kafi players are there. And then something called the IPL also started in 2008. So that gave the players additional exposure to limited overs cricket. So 50 over का जो format था, I don't think it held any fears for them. After playing 2020, it's a piece of cake. And वो एक feeling भी थी कि हम घर पे खेल रहे हैं. We're playing on our own grounds, so we cannot go wrong. And then of course Sachin Tendulkar, it was a mission of sorts for him. वो जानते थे कि वो 5 World Cup खेल चुके हैं, ये उनका last World Cup होने वाला है. And he really wanted to make this one count.
And just before the World Cup, India was in South Africa, and they walked away with a drawn Test series in South Africa for the first time ever. They didn't lose in South Africa on that particular tour. In the one days, India did pretty well, even though they lost the one day series. And I think Yusuf Pathan played a couple of blinders, much like he did at home,
Yes.
right before the South Africa series, and that helped him get into the World Cup squad. And interestingly, that particular selection committee had 2 World Cup winners, the chairman Krishnamachari Shrikant and Yashpal Sharma.
Yes.
Both were members of the 83 World Cup.
Yes. Yes.
So no one can take that away from the two of them ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was I think their job was made a lot easier by the fact that most of the players had been very consistent for one whole year or a couple of years. So I think that team picked itself in a way.
Yeah, and even though like I said, that seniors used to take breaks from time to time from the white ball series here and there. They used to play the red ball matches, but they would never take a break. They would never take a break from test matches. But from one day cricket,
Yes.
they regularly take breaks. And we must also remember, India had 3 disappointments between the 2007 50 over T20 World Cup and the 2011 World Cup. 2009 T20 World Cup, disaster. And we all know how it ended. Gary Kirsten said something, didn't say something about IPL. We don't know. 2009 Champions Trophy, India played 3 games. One was washed out. They won 1 game and they lost to Pakistan. And the tournament ended in disaster. 2010 T20 World Cup, another controversy where the captain and the entire squad turned up at a press conference to quell speculation that Virender Sehwag and Mahendra Singh Dhoni were on good terms and there was no unban, as they say in Hindi. So the only, I think, good news as far as a multi-team tournament between 2007 T20 World Cup and this was the 2010 Asia Cup in terms of multi-nation. But like you said, the team was settled by that.
Settled, yeah. So the disappointments you mentioned, 2 of them were T20 World Cups. So this was a different format, 50 overs, and that additional comfort of playing at home. And obviously the players were all pretty attuned to Indian conditions. And they had the Asia Cup win of 2010 behind them. So I think we all expected them to reaching the semi-finals was a foregone conclusion. After that, anything can happen. But there was this quiet confidence that probably 83 might repeat itself.
Interesting, because the tournament was allotted to India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. It was supposed to be the first big tournament in the entire subcontinent, so to speak. And it was known in 2006 itself that Wankhede would host the final. Pakistan was set to host the matches, but then there was an attack on the Sri Lankan team in early March 2009, and the matches were taken away from them, and it was allocated to both Bangladesh and to Sri Lanka. And Pakistan's base became Sri Lanka for that entire World Cup. Do you think, moving away from that particular topic, do you think that Srishant should be sending every year on April 2nd a thank you card to Praveen Kumar for making sure that he gets a World Cup winning medal and not Praveen Kumar himself?
Yeah, probably yes. Sreesan should do that. And as it turned out, Sreesan was part of two World Cup winning teams, the 2007 T20 and the 50-over World Cup. But coming back to what you said about Pakistan, in fact, the PCB headquarters in Lahore were to be the operational hub of that World Cup. But because of that attack on the Sri Lankan team, the terrorist attack in Lahore, everything was shifted to the cricket center in Mumbai, the BCCI headquarters,
Where you were working?
where I was working. And Professor Ratnakar Shetty, the then Chief Administrative Officer of the BCCI, was appointed tournament director.
And it was an interesting. I was at the International Cricket Council in Dubai, and we used to regularly coordinate over the media guide and many other things. In fact, we were staying in the same hotel during the 2011 semi-final in Mohali when India played Pakistan. I'll never forget that. And I actually took a chartered flight that night, right after the game in Mohali, from Chandigarh airport. I remember sitting on the tarmac with director Anurag Basu and talking about his movie Kites, if you remember.
Yes.
Starred Hrithik Roshan right after the semi-final. And the who's who of the Bombay glitterati, as to speak, where at that airport it was absolutely jam-packed airport that night in Chandigarh. And then it wasn't a functional airport like it is now. It was, I think it was a Air Force airport.
Air Force base,
yeah. So it was more like that. So it was a crazy thing, and I almost was scared about sitting in the aircraft because it was shaking so much after a point of time. But we'll get to that story later. But getting into this World Cup, India got on board someone like a Mike Horn, who's like an explorer.
Motivational speaker, yeah.
And they say that he played a big part in that campaign for India. I don't. What
These things happen. We had Sandy Gordon, the psychologist, in the 2003 World Cup. He introduced us to the concept of that huddle, which was then copied by several other teams. Pepsi, in fact, did a commercial around that huddle concept. It was a great thing. So I think these things help at the highest level. There is no dearth of talent. I mean, you cannot make it to the highest level of the sport if you're not talented. But then to succeed at the highest level, you need something besides mere talent. And that is where, again, the area between the ears assumes a lot of importance. And I think motivational talks, a little bit of psychology definitely helps.
And the build-up to the World Cup started with the opening ceremony in Dhaka. Were you there in Dhaka for
No, I was not.
So that I think that was the first sighting. They changed the format for this World Cup because they realized in 2007, the moment India and Pakistan went out of the tournament in the first round, there was absolutely no interest. So I'm even joked that the 2007 World Cup is still going on.
Yeah.
Because it kept going on and on and on, and nobody knew.
The ICC was sensible enough to get back to the two group format for 2011.
And the tournament started with Sehwag and Kohli striking hundreds in the very first game for India. And it was the perfect start for India in that particular tournament with that win over Bangladesh.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. You need a winning start. And Bangladesh were no pushovers. They were playing at home. And most importantly, they had beaten India in the 2007 World Cup. So I think for the Indians also, it was important for them to exorcise the ghosts of that defeat at Port of Spain in 2007. And I think the Indians won that first match very comprehensively. I remember Sehwag starting the World Cup with a boundary of the very first ball. And yeah, it was a very comprehensive win, and it pretty much set up the remainder of the campaign.
And for all you geeks out there, one interesting factoid which I think will give you a lot of hope. 2011, last time Shakib Al Hasan captained Bangladesh in a ODI World Cup. India won the World Cup. He's back as Bangladesh's ODI captain. I don't know if there's any coincidence.
Let's hope.
If there's any kind of coincidence over there. Now, the campaign began for India. They moved from strength to strength in the sense that next game was against England in Bangalore. That was a high-scoring tie, and India was almost, even after scoring 338 thanks to Tendulkar and Sehwag once again, almost after that, they had a collapse in that particular game after that. Andrew Strauss almost brought India to their knees. Thanks to Zahir Khan, India managed to tie that game. Or they would have lost crucial points there.
Yes, it was a great game. I remember at one stage we thought England are running away with it. And I think Andrew Strauss was not really a regular in limited overs cricket, but he batted brilliantly that day. And Zahir got us back into the match, as you said. I think a tie was a fair result at the end. I remember many people being very restless. Even I left my seat and I was pacing up and down to try and bring some luck to the Indian bowlers. I mean, we all have our methods of trying to help our team out. But yeah, it was a great game of cricket and just a tremendous advertisement. Zahir Khan, who went on to become the highest wicket taker in that tournament, I think he had a great game. He brought us back.
And then from then on, it was the Yuvraj Singh show in that tournament.
Absolutely.
There was nothing that could stop him in the rest of the tournament, especially with the ball. You had Zahir at the start with the new ball, and then you had Yuvraj in the middle overs with his left arm spin.
Again, it was a kind of a repeat of 2003 because in 2003 we were looking for a wicket-keeping all-rounder. We did not find one, so we created one in the form of Rahul Dravid. 2011 we had been looking for a batsman who can bowl, kind of a spin bowling all-rounder, but we couldn't find one. So Yuvraj, who used to turn his arm over anyway, he was asked to move one step up and function as the fifth bowler. No, Sachin Sehwag were very much there, but Yuvraj was projected as the fifth bowler, a left-arm spinner, and I think he delivered brilliantly. He had a rough time, mind you, in the lead up to the World Cup. He had in fact even been dropped from the limited overs team in the middle of 2010, and what a comeback he made. And later on, when certain revelations came to light, what he has been going through, what his body has been going through, then that just spoke volumes about that man and his commitment to winning matches for his country.
Absolutely. And India could make subtle changes to their lineup. They initially started with Yusuf Pathan, then brought in Suresh Raina. It didn't make much difference to the balance of the side, as we later found out, because both were similar in that sense. One only thing was Yusuf was right-handed and Suresh was left-handed, but there was a good balance in the line.
Good balance. Suresh Raina came in directly for the knockout game. So his first match of the tournament was the quarter-final against Australia at Ahmedabad.
The old ground.
The old ground. So till then it was Yusuf Pathan. So I think, as you said, it worked very well. That the balance was retained throughout.
And Yuvraj, you spoke about Yuvraj, that game, the final league game, that group game that India played in Chennai against West Indies, where Ravi Rampal bowled a dream spell. Yuvraj scored 100 in that game. He was vomiting blood in that game, and none of us knew right then. Much later in that year was it revealed to us that he was suffering from cancer, and he fought a very good battle against cancer, won, and he's alive and kicking right now and doing very well.
Yuvraj Singh will always be remembered as one of India's all-time greats, because let's not forget that he won India not one but 3 World Cups. You start with the Under-19 World Cup of 2000, where he was a member of the team led by Mohammad Kaif. Then 2007 T20 World Cup, where he was easily our best batsman. And then we come to 2011, where he excelled with the bat. I think 4 Man of the Match awards and the ball as well, crucially. Made a big difference. So Yuvraj Singh definitely will go down in history as someone who won 3 World Cups for India.
And in that World Cup, India tied a game against England in Bangalore. They beat Netherlands and Ireland quite easily. The game against South Africa in Nagpur, I was there. I think you were also there.
I was also there.
And in that game, again, India suffered a collapse.
Yes, that game is one that we should have won rather easily. When you are 278 for 1, with I think 5 or 6 overs to go, I mean, the stage is set for an assault, and we were all thinking about 340, 350 with the kind of batting lineup that India had. But before we realized it, 278 for 1 became 296 all out, which means that we lost 9 wickets for the addition of only 18 runs. Although the bowlers did well subsequently, but from the South African point of view, they had gained the momentum with all those Indian wickets in the last overs. And I think they won the game in the final over of their innings.
And this particular tournament, for the first time, we had something called, then it was called UDRS, Umpire Decision Review System. Subsequent events have ensured that the name changed to DRS. And that England game, I just remembered, India appealed, they went upstairs for a review, and India was reluctant to adopt DRS for bilateral contests, but for ICC events, they had to go with it. Ian Bell dismissal, if you remember, and India went in for a review, and they were not happy with the final decision that came back. And I still remember. Uh, there was a lot of discussion about why it was not out, and there was this distance rule, some 25 centimeter, 50 centimeter. It fails my memory right now, but it was about how long Ian Bell had stretched his the leg forward, and that's why the decision went in England, Ian Bell's favor, and not in India's favor. Then they had to change the rule midway through the tournament.
Yeah, so that is the whole thing. The BCCI was always opposed to the DRS in those days, especially for bilateral series, because they were not really convinced. They were of the view that if you are using technology, that then it better be foolproof. So I think that 2011 World Cup showed that although you were using technology, there were certain areas in which it could be improved, and then the rule was changed midway through the tournament. So yeah, there was this thing, but ultimately I think the Indians used it very well. We used it in the final against Sri Lanka, also one crucial wicket where, if I remember correctly, Dhoni, the wicket keeper, wasn't sure, but Yuvraj made him take that review. So I think the teams used that DRS, but they were still learning. It was a work in progress.
At the other end, the other teams, how were you looking at the other teams involved in the competition?
I think Australia were expected to do well, and they were doing well. And in the other group, we all expected Sri Lanka and Pakistan to make an impact because, after all, they were playing in familiar conditions. So Sri Lanka were doing well. New Zealand, as expected, were doing well in an ICC event. They always raise their game in ICC events. And Pakistan also. Pakistan ended Australia's dream run in the World Cup by beating Australia in a league match in Colombo. So it was getting very competitive, and one felt that as when we would enter the knockout stage, it would lead to some brilliant cricket, and we were proved right.
Absolutely. And you spoke about the knockout stage. India played Australia in the quarterfinal in Ahmedabad, not the new stadium, the old version of the current stadium. And I think that even though Australia batted first and put up a decent total, everyone still felt that India would chase that target. Wasn't that the case?
There was confidence because 261 was not a very big score by 2011 standards. And we had the batting capable of doing it. Yuvraj was batting like a dream. There always was that apprehension that the Australians, if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. But we got a good start. There was a bit of a wobble in the middle overs when Gambhir and Yuvraj had just come into bat. But I think after Dhoni fell, there was some jitters that okay, because the target then was a runner ball. But then Yuvraj was on another planet, and I remember some of the shots he played. Oh, he was just on a roll. Suresh Raina came in, hit a six very early on in his innings in his first World Cup game, and we won pretty easily in the end. So that feeling was there that with Yuvraj in such great form and Sachin Sehwag blazing away at the top of the order, we should get through.
The way Yuvraj played Bretley, it was breathtaking.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And at the other end, speaking about Pakistan and the other teams, Bangladesh, they lost to West Indies in one game where West Indies blew them away for some 70 odd. And then there were riots on the outside the stadium, if you remember
The
that.
West Indies team bus was stolen. Yeah, yeah. These things are, unfortunately, they tend to happen sometimes in our part of the world. They need to be avoided because one has to understand that it's a game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
And New Zealand played South Africa in Bangladesh, and that was an ill-tempered contest, if you remember that. There was a lot of. Today they all are good friends, but at that time, most of the guys, Scott Styris and the others, taking on the South Africans, मैं कभी नहीं भूलूंगा वो मैच.
बेसिकली कैसा है कि एक बहुत बड़ी चीज जो आईपीएल ने की है वो ये है कि वो जो बैरियर्स थे अलग अलग कंट्रीज में से IPL should be given the credit for breaking those barriers because people from different countries came together, spent a lot of time together playing for the same team, spending time in dressing rooms. So New Zealand, South Africa always had that aggro between them. New Zealand have always had this reputation of being the nice boys, but I think the South Africans provoked them, and that led to some forgettable scenes. But ultimately, I think all's well that ends well.
Absolutely. And then वक्त हो चला था सेमीफाइनल के लिए. न्यूजीलैंड को ट्रैवल करना था कोलंबो to play Sri Lanka, which was supposed to be Mutaya Muralidharan's last game at home. Last one-day game at home. And then the other end, Pakistan beat West Indies and qualified for the semi-final, which was to be played in Mohali. And this was Pakistan's first ever trip to India after the 2007 tour and after the 2008 Mumbai attacks.
Yes.
That was a big contest in that sense.
Yeah, I remember Mohali. Chandigarh was like a fortress. इतनी security थी. It was very difficult.
Mobile नहीं चल रहा था.
Mobiles नहीं चल रहे थे. And as it turned out, on the match day, the two prime ministers of India and Pakistan, decided to visit the ground. So that sent everything for a toss. The truck carrying the food of the players, that was delayed. तो जो Indian team ने जो fielding की उस मैच में, वो खाली पेट थी क्योंकि उनका खाना पहुंचा ही नहीं ग्राउंड में. Security ने उसे रोक दिया था. So it was very tough being in Chandigarh that day. But a good game of cricket. There was, I think, we got a good start. Sachin batted well. He had a couple of lives, but he batted well. And मुझे एक चीज याद है उस सेमीफाइनल की कि सुरेश रैना, he played a very sensible innings, because जब वो बैटिंग करने आए तो एक ऐसा स्टेज था कि अभी एक्सेलरेट करना है और 300 के करीब स्कोर लेके जाने का चैलेंज था. लेकिन there were a couple of wickets lost. युवराज सिंह, if I remember correctly, fell for a duck bowled by Wahab Riaz. And number 8 बैट्समैन आ गए. तो सुरेश रैना ने सोचा कि it is important to get as many runs as possible. So he then went for singles, twos, और ऐसे करके we finished with 260, 261, which was a competitive total. So I think Suresh Raina batted very sensibly that day.
And you spoke about Sachin's innings, a couple of lives. And a couple of lives thanks to DRS, a system which he never really quite warmed up to.
So that's the irony. कि DRS की वजह से he was able to carry on with his innings. He played well, but और एक चीज मुझे बहुत it gave me a great relief personally that we batted first, because I think chasing with this capacity Indian crowd behind you, थोड़ा शायद psychologically it would have been a bit of a challenge.
और उस कॉन्टेस्ट में आपने जैसे बात किया था, दोनों प्राइम मिनिस्टर आए थे, मुझे पता है कि अनशेड्यूल्ड था.
Totally unscheduled.
टॉस के बाद suddenly the two prime ministers were escorted onto the field. And I know for a fact that a lot of people were on the edge because the match had to start at 2:30 p.m. India time, of course. And they decided to introduce the two prime ministers to the two teams.
तो ये थोड़ा ICC के प्रोटोकॉल की ब्रीच भी थी, because these things don't happen after the toss, because the players are all in getting into match mode. The opening batsmen of the team batting first are getting, and they were then told to shake hands. तो इसकी वजह से फिर जब फाइनल मुंबई में खेली गई 2 दिन बाद, तो दोबारा एक डिमांड आया कि इंडिया के प्रेसिडेंट प्रतिभा पाटिल और श्रीलंका के प्रेसिडेंट महिंदा राजपक्सा दोनों वानखेड़े होने वाले हैं. So let them be introduced to the teams. And the ICC this time put its foot down. They said no, it cannot happen. ऐसे नहीं होता, हमारे प्रोटोकॉल्स से ये अलाउड नहीं है. फिर उन्होंने कहा कि फिर उनको ट्रॉफी प्रेजेंट करने को दी जाए विनिंग कैप्टन को. वो भी आईसीसी ने रिफ्यूज किया कि एज पर द प्रोटोकॉल आईसीसी का जो प्रेसिडेंट है वही विनिंग कैप्टन को ट्रॉफी प्रेजेंट करेगा.
और वही चीज हुआ था 99 में, जब चाहते थे कि प्रिंस चार्ल्स चाहते थे कि वो प्रेजेंट करे, पर जगमोहन डालमिया ने
टू रिमाइंड पीपल ऑफ द रूल्स.
एब्सोल्युटली. पर उस सेमीफाइनल में चेस हुआ तो ऐसा लग रहा था कि पाकिस्तान वाज कीपिंग पेस एट वन पॉइंट.
या बट दे वर लूजिंग विकेट्स आल्सो प्रीटी रेगुलरली, एंड आई थिंक ऐसे कभी लगा नहीं at any stage that we are allowing them to run away with it. There was some good bowling. I remember a gem of a slower ball that Munaf Patel bowled, and Misbah-ul Haq for some reason got stuck. He was just unable to get things going.
दो चीजें अभी भी बात होती है, एक कि 2007 का वर्ल्ड कप अब भी चल रहा है, दूसरा कि मिसबाह-उल हक आज भी उधर मोहाली में बैटिंग कर रहा है.
डेफिनेटली. मतलब ऐसा लग रहा था कि why isn't he getting a move on? But then looking at the situation from his point of view, शायद ऐसे होगा कि दूसरे एंड पे विकेट जा रहे हैं तो मुझे अंत तक खेलना है, वैसे भी हो सकता है.
बिल्कुल. और अंत में आशीष नेहरा बेचारे इंजर्ड हो गए थे. आई थिंक वेबिंग उनका पूरी तरह से फट गया था, और उसके बाद उस मुकाबले के बाद उनको 4 साल लग गए, मतलब आई थिंक कम से कम 5 साल लगे उसके बाद वापसी करने के लिए भारतीय टीम में. उस मोहाली वाले मुकाबले के बाद उनको टीम में वापस किसी भी फॉर्मेट में वापस नहीं लाया गया. आई थिंक ही केम बैक right before the 2016 T20 World Cup. So for 5 years we had not seen after that day in Mohali, and in the end India won quite easily.
Yes.
And they say that the team was motivated by the fact that we cannot allow the Pakistan team to travel to Mumbai and stay in the same Taj which was attacked.
Yes. Oh, that is that is definitely there. But I think players, mere khayal se they would have been looking at it from a cricketing point of view. So they were, I guess, very happy to win the match and go on to the final. I think everybody was wanting to do it for Sachin. तो वो एक मुझे याद है हमने जब हमारी टीम ने जब दिल्ली को हराया था, नेदरलैंड्स को हराया था, बेग योर पार्डन, इन दिल्ली, फिरोज शाह कोटला, और युवराज को मैन ऑफ द मैच अवार्ड मिला था. तो युवराज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस पे आए थे आफ्टर द मैच, और युवराज ने उस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में एक बयान दिया था कि ये जो वर्ल्ड कप है ये मैं एक बहुत ही स्पेशल इंडिविजुअल के लिए जीतना चाहता हूँ. एंड देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ क्यूरियोसिटी कि कौन है ये स्पेशल शख्स, इज इट अ लेडी और व्हाटएवर, देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ स्पेकुलेशन. और फिर आगे जाके फाइनल के बाद जब युवराज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए आए तो उन्होंने कहा कि दैट स्पेशल इंडिविजुअल फॉर हुम आई वांटेड टू विन द वर्ल्ड कप इज नन अदर देन सचिन रमेश तेंदुलकर.
बिल्कुल. और सेमीफाइनल के बाद का तो मैंने आपको हाल बताया. I went straight from the semi-final from venue to the airport, to the Chandigarh airport. We took a chartered flight, completely jam-packed Chandigarh airport, the glitterati of Bombay Filmdom, Bombay High Society. Everyone was there and it was crazy. I'll never forget that experience ever. It was a crazy time. And we came to Mumbai, final build-up. We're building up to the final, a lot of things happening. I remember the final day. I had to pick up a ticket for my father from my colleague who was staying at Taj, and I was staying at home. I couldn't get close to the hotel because
Everything had been cordoned off.
Everything had been cordoned off, and we had to take a lot of U-turns and detours and everything, and finally we got a ticket for my father. We had to park the car some 5 kilometers away. Remember, India was the Sri Lanka World Cup final. 2:30 p.m. start, but at about 9:30 a.m. We had to get into the stadium.
Yes, of course.
And once you got in, you couldn't get out.
Yes. The CISF, Central India Industrial Security Force, had taken over the Wankhede.
Completely.
And they did a phenomenal job. They just handled it brilliantly.
So for 5 hours, we were inside, but the time just kept just going, and we never realized because there was so much excitement about the build up to the final. And I remember my father was sitting all alone, no mobile network coverage, there was no WhatsApp at that time, no social media craze at that time. I think it was just after the smartphone era had started, so not much addiction to the phone like it is today. And interestingly, that particular tournament, the news broadcasters were having a running battle with ICC, and they've had their own battles with the BCCI. I still remember few of them, they had to get in from the university ground into the Wankhede Stadium. Few of them were getting in when they got a call from their office saying we are boycotting the final. Some of them got in, they couldn't get out. So they sat and watched the whole final as a spectator because nobody could contact them. Good for them. Nobody could contact them because there was no network coverage.
Yes. I remember those battles. The news broadcasters, they had their own reasons. But I'm very happy for all those who managed to get in and watch history in Mumbai as spectators.
And when the match finally started, was supposed to start, there was a controversy in the 2007 World Cup final. The way it ended, in 2011, the same match referee, but this time, there was a controversy about the way it started.
Yes. The coin was tossed. Mahendra Singh Dhoni was declared the winner of the toss, and I think he even elected to bat first, I think. And then suddenly Kumara Sangakkara, the Sri Lankan captain, stepped in and said, no, I did not. I think I have won it. So there was some confusion, and they had to do a retoss, which Kumara Sangakkara won, and he then elected to bat.
And the same match referee, Jeff Crow, was involved.
Yeah.
So there was a problem with the way the previous World Cup ended and the way this particular World Cup final started.
Yes, absolutely.
So nothing had changed in that sense.
Nothing much had changed. But one thing that had changed was Zaheer Khan, because he had bowled the opening over of the 2003 World Cup final, in which he tried to give Matthew Hayden and Adam Gilchrist some lip, and ended up conceding 15 runs in the very first over. And the Australians just ran away with the game after that. But look what he did in the 2011 World Cup final, exactly 8 years later. He was again bowling the first over. And I think at the end of his first spell, his figures read something like 5 overs, 3 maidens, 6 runs and 1 wicket. he prevented the Sri Lankans from getting off to a runaway start. So when we talk about the World Cup final, yes, people remember Gambhir, they remember Mahendra Singh Dhoni, obviously. But what they don't remember is that initial spell by Zahir Khan, where he put the brakes on the Sri Lankans. So if the Sri Lankans finished with 274 and maybe not 324, uh, India has Zahir Khan to thank.
Absolutely. And, the way Mahela Jayawardene batted in that final,
Brilliant.
magical.
Magical innings. Absolutely.
It sort of gave me jitters because I was the neutral, because I was the ICC at that time. As a neutral, I didn't really have to.
It was Mahela Jayawardene's innings was the kind of innings that you don't mind watching, even if you are in the opposition. It was phenomenal.
Absolutely classical knock that. So now they set up the score. Half time. Did you think India could chase it down?
We felt we could, but again, because we had the batting superpower, Yuvraj was on song, and we just felt it would, how appropriate it would be if Sachin Tendulkar is in the middle when the winning runs are achieved. You have those, those classic storylines in mind. But of course, that wasn't to be. Sehwag fell second ball, and then a little later, Sachin, after playing some gorgeous straight drives, Sachin got out. And I remember you could have heard a pin drop in the Wankhede when that happened. Wankhede Stadium packed to capacity, but when Sachin fell, I think it was 25 or so, 25 for 2, you could have heard a pin drop. And that is where I think we saw the making of a legend. Virat Kohli had played some good innings for India before the World Cup, but that innings of 35 that Virat scored that evening in partnership with Gautam Gambhir, his senior, I think that was a great knock by Virat Kohli, because along with Gautam Gambhir, he brought India's innings back on track.
Absolutely. And Virat is on record saying that when he was walking into the stadium, he's almost like it was a deflating experience because there was complete silence. Absolutely. He walked in as Sachin walked off the. So it was almost like a baton being passed, so to speak. That was a great partnership, Virat Kohli and Gautam Gambhir. And it put India's innings back on track. And they were together driving India towards that World Cup title. Yes. Subsequent events have shown that they are driving apart.
But who cares? What happened on 2nd April 2011 is what matters. I remember after Virat got out to a great written catch by Tilakaratne Dilshan, I was sitting in the press box, which is bang opposite the dressing rooms at the Wankhede. And obviously, when the third wicket fell, we all thought that Yuvraj will come in because he was the informed player. And sure enough, we saw one player climb down the steps of the dressing room. As I said, we were sitting bang opposite. Nobody was really looking at the television screens. And when that player stepped onto the playing arena, we suddenly realized this is not Yuvraj, because he's not walking like Yuvraj. And then we instinctively looked up at the television monitors in the press box and we realized that it was the captain Mahendra Singh Dhoni himself. And everyone was like, my God, he's not been in the best of form with the bat. Why is he doing this in a World Cup final? Because if he fails, the media, the fans, everybody's going to roast him. But I think that was again a classic call by the captain. He realized that Muthaiya Muralidharan held the key to Sri Lanka's fortunes in the middle stages of India's chase. And he believed that having played a lot of Muthaiya Muralidharan, especially when they were for Chennai Super Kings in the nets, he believed that he would handle Murli a lot better than Yuvraj Singh, the left-handed Yuvraj Singh. And what a move that was. And I must say, it's very easy to say this with the benefit of hindsight, but there was something about that walk of Mahendra Singh Dhoni to the wicket, which just totally reassured you. You felt that no issues, no tension, India is going to win this match.
And they did in the end. Yes. Gambhir was unfortunate to get out with his score on 97. But then Yuvraj came onto the field, and Yuvraj and Dhoni were slowly building towards the title. I'll never forget this. It somehow makes me nostalgic and almost can make one emotional when you think about the fact that as India was getting closer to the title, there was this chant of Vande Mataram.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it was appropriate that Yuvraj Singh was in the middle when the victory was completed, because after all, he had been the player of the tournament.
And when that final shot was hit, every one of us knows how it ended. The final shot by Dhoni and what Ravi Shastri called on air, the reactions, the celebration, even the great Rajinikanth was in the stadium. So when he is around, then nothing can go wrong. And the thing is that particular shot is forever etched in everyone's memory. And I'm very fortunate. So, as an employee of ICC, all of us we got a photograph of that particular shot because we had a photographer perched on top of the Wankhede roof of Wankhede, and he got that exact moment of that shot. So I have a completely framed photo of that particular shot in my house, and it captures the reaction of the entire stadium as the bat goes like this, and I'll never forget that moment ever.
Absolutely. Now that was a great way to end things, and full credit to Mahendra Singh Dhoni for boldly promoting himself and then the innings that he played. Gambhir was genuinely unlucky to miss out on 100 in a World Cup final, but yeah, that's part and parcel of the game. But yes, a great victory.
Absolutely brilliant victory. Now, post that victory, they had a full parade around the ground, and the security decided that they want to be part of the photo op,
Yes.
like they do in India most often, rather than letting things be, because nobody is going to come onto the field. Because there are barbed wires all over. No fan is going to come onto the field, but in India, somehow that concept is alien. Everyone wants to be part of the photo op. The trophy was handed over to Mahendra Singh Dhoni. I'll never forget that particular moment. And Yuvraj, player of the tournament, and it was a celebration that everyone will remember forever on the field.
Yes, absolutely. Great scenes. Like my memories of 1983 are very hazy, but I was there to witness the 2011 when I watched most of the key matches from the stadium. So it will always remain one of the big highs of my life.
And I still remember coming onto the field and clicking photos, and I don't seem to have that photo anymore, of me sitting on the pitch after the match ended and getting a few photos clicked. I don't know who has those photos. So if anybody is watching it, अगर आपके पास है वो फोटो मुझे भिजवा दीजिए, क्योंकि मुझे याद नहीं है कि किसने फोटो लिया था मेरा. वो मैं फोटो ढूंढ के परेशान हो गया. और उसके बाद, as I stepped out of the stadium, I have never seen anything like this ever. Since that day or before that, in my lifetime, the entire city, the entire country came to a standstill.
Yes.
The way they celebrated.
Marine Drive was inundated. People were standing on top of their cars, on the roof of their cars, and dancing. Those were great scenes, unbelievable scenes. Absolutely.
It took the team from the Wankhede Stadium to Taj. It took them 5 hours. 5 घंटे लगे उनको जाने के लिए. और वो कितना 10 मिनट का रास्ता?
10 minute का रास्ता.
5 hours it took them to reach to Taj, and I believe they partied all night.
Of course, which you must, having won a World Cup after all.
Absolutely tremendous achievement. And the next morning, the team had a photo op, and the captain decided to shave off his head.
Yeah, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, that's the way he is. When we won the 2007 T20 World Cup, he had flowing locks, and this time he decided to go to the other extreme. That was Dhoni.
And the team was felicitated at the governor's house by the president,
Yes.
who stayed back, and that was something that they'll remember forever.
Absolutely.
Was that the best Indian team to have won a World Cup? Better than the 83 team?
Difficult to compare because again the circumstances were different. 83 one-day cricket was still an alien concept. We were still coming to terms with it. 2011 the team was a seasoned all-format team. So it's very difficult to make comparisons between things that happened 28 years apart. But in terms of expectations, definitely we expected the 2011 team to leave an impact on that World Cup. Nobody expected anything in 1983. Difficult to compare, I would say.
Absolutely. And those celebrations are still going on. 12 years on, we're still celebrating that particular victory. And that was the last day Gary Kirsten and his support staff worked with the Indian team.
Yes.
And Gary Kirsten is forever an honorary Indian for what he did after the disappointment that we had in 2007. And it was a fantastic way to end that particular tournament for India.
Yes.
No dramas that went on before, during, or after the tournament. Everything started after the tournament, much later.
Much later.
And so that was yet another episode of our podcast, looking back at some memorable moments from previous ODI Cricket World Cups. Devendra, thanks a lot for joining us. Beyond the Boundaries will continue. We'll have more episodes in the coming days coming your way. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe this channel, and keep supporting us and keep spreading the word about us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.